Hi, I'm Don Taylor. Today I'm bringing you an informational speech for Communications 1103, Mid America Christian University, and Professor Sarah Garrett. I wanted to speak to you today about the prevalence of mental health instability, issues, paranoia, and more specifically, schizophrenia that appears in the Bible. So, schizophrenia is a disorder that affects a person's ability to think, feel, and behave clearly, according to the Mayo Clinic. Um, Psychosis, which is one of the symptoms of schizophrenia, refers to a set of symptoms characterized by a loss of touch with reality due to a disruption in the way the brain processes information. Paul, who is one of the disciples and leaders of the Christian faith, in the Bible has a book titled Romans. And in Romans, he describes something that's going on inside of him. He states, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living within me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that it is my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is the sin that is living within that does it. Excuse me. That is a lot. That's a lot going on inside his head. That's a lot of double mindedness. That's a lot of back and forth. That's a lot of affecting your ability to do what you think you need to do, as he says. Um, Other parts of schizophrenia are hallucinations, delusions, negative symptoms, which is when certain things take away from your quality of living, cognitive issues, and disorganized thinking. Now, sometimes it can affect a person's speech, the words that they say, even if they can come up with words to say. Often it will pull them out of social situations. They'll be withdrawn and have no desire to be around people or in society at all. It causes them to have a lack of desire to even, or motivation to even like do simple skills like take care of themselves or look out for themselves or something of that nature. In Luke, Jesus, also in the Bible, gives us a parable about a young man called the prodigal son. He takes what he thinks is his inheritance and all what he wants at that time, which is money, and he goes into the big city and he lives it up. And when he comes to the end of that money, he finds himself on the brink of starvation and basically the brink of his sanity in a pig farm. He's like in the pens. He's hungry. He's thinking about eating the pig food where the pigs are. And he says to himself, or that Luke says about it, and when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? So it's that statement of, as he came to himself. So he was doing all these things, not taking care of himself, not thinking about his welfare, not thinking about his care or his the concern for himself, like what is a natural thought. There was an interruption in that, which is very similar to schizophrenia. And then he had to come back to himself as if the thinking he was doing was not natural, was not about him. Another characteristic for schizophrenia, or some, I guess, to go deeper into it, is there's thoughts or experiences that seem out of touch with reality. Their disorganized speech or behavior, as I mentioned before, decreased participation in daily activities, as I mentioned before, difficulty with concentration and memory, isolating yourself, being withdrawn, increase in unusual thoughts and suspicions. And sometimes there's a family history of the psychosis, but some paranoia is in there. In First Samuel, in the Bible, they talk about Saul, which was a pretty well-known king. And at the time, God had told Saul and others that at Saul's end of being a king, David would take over. So it says in 1 Samuel 18 that, and Saul was jealous and did not trust David from that day on. The next day, a bad spirit sent from God came upon Saul with power. He acted like a crazy man in the house. While David was playing the harp, Saul had a spear in his hand, and he threw the spear, thinking, I will nail David to the wall. There are other accounts in 1 Samuel where Saul violently went after David. He attempted to kill him. It was because of the intrusive thoughts, the suspicion, and the paranoia that was building up inside of him that he could not control. I'm sorry, that he could not control, that was just like overwhelming him in the same way it describes as schizophrenia does to an individual. Now, this subject is very close to my heart. I'm a fourth year student in the behavior of science for psychology courses. I have a 24-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with schizophrenia when she was 19, and I have a husband who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia since he was at a very young age. So I've dealt with some of these situations pretty prevalently and repeatedly, and so I just found it very interesting that nothing we go through, even though it seems new, even though society might put a spin on it, like, can you imagine this is happening in our world today? Nothing we go through is brand new. Have a good day.